Welcome, everybody, to Wrestling Travel's Lockdown Sessions, presented to you, as always, from our boys and girl up at True Heel Heat Podcast in New York City. They are doing podcasts right. This is going to be my tagline. If you get a chance to listen to one new pro wrestling podcast this week, make it True Heel Heat. If you got a lot of time and you want to, check out Wrestling Travel as we try our hand at a podcast too. But enough about all of that. Let's talk to our special guest today. We're sitting here with Jastin Taylor. Jastin, welcome to the show.
Hello. It's great to be here. Living proof Jastin Taylor, finally in the house.
Finally in the house. Jastin, where, I should have asked you off camera, where are you located right now? Where are you coming to us from?
I am located in Midland, Texas, which is like, I guess if you want to nail it down to a region, is West Texas. So right over there near Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, that kind of area right there. But Midland's kind of like this small, kind of really small town, but it's known for oil. It's an oil field town. So obviously we've got a lot of people moving in and out and stuff like that. So a lot of people know it because of its association with oil, and it's Texas, obviously. But yeah, that is where the living proof is from.
Now, I'm much older than you, so you might not know, but did they not bill Wahoo McDaniel from Midland, Texas at some point in his career?
Yes, they did. So that's one of the legends that comes from this area. So yeah, there's quite a few that have come from the West Texas area, but the prominent ones that get spoken about all the time, of course, Wahoo McDaniel. And then I'm about 2 hours from Sweetwater, Texas, and good old JBL is from Sweetwater, Texas. So those are the two that are associated with West Texas a lot. And then, of course, how can I leave out Terry Funk? He resides in Amarillo, Texas, which is also part of this western region. So those are three prominent wrestlers that come from this area.
Barry Windham was billed from Sweetwater for part of his career.
Yeah, he sure was.
So that you're right in there with the whatever's in the water down there, kind of like what's up in the water used to be up in Minneapolis. So you're in good company. But tell us now, how long have you been in the business then?
Well, it has been 11 years that I have been in the business. So, so quite a bit of while I've been in. And it's been, I wouldn't take it back for anything, man. There's definitely been ups and downs and backwards and forwards and, of course, bumps and bruises, which I'm sure you know all about that. But, I wouldn't trade it for anything, man. And I've really enjoyed myself, and I've been fortunate to do so much during this time.
Now, I usually ask this next question, but I got to be not careful the way I frame it. But I usually ask, like, where did you break in? Who broke you in? And I realize that nowadays you might break in with somebody, but you consider somebody else your trainer. So talk to me about breaking into the business. Who did you start training with?
Well, I've got I guess you could say the humble beginning story where it was just me and a bunch of guys jumping around on a trampoline, man, having no idea what we were doing and having wrestling shows on a trampoline and whatnot. But I got the attention, we got the attention, I guess you could say, of the NWA Top of Texas in Amarillo, Texas. And that's really where my training started. We were actually, me and some friends were actually sitting out in the crowd. We had met some people online through MySpace. Man, that makes me sound old. Through MySpace, yes, where we were putting clips of these trampoline matches and stuff like that. But anyway, through that, we got in contact with some guys from Amarillo who invited us to a show. They were like, oh, they're just fans, we ought to invite them to a show in Amarillo. So me and some guys hopped in a car, drove 4 hours, and we went to this NWA Top of Texas show in Amarillo. And it's not NWA anymore, but at the time, that was how it was referred to. So long story short, we get to the end of the show, and the promoter, who's I believe still the promoter over there, Jack Logan, comes up and he goes, "Hey, he looked at me and my friends and he's like, man, you guys are kind of big, you got good looks. Have you ever thought about seriously doing this?" And of course we were just like, yeah, baby. So, but he was really cool, man. And he let me and my friends get in the ring, and some wrestlers came out and kind of, welcomed us, and we met some of them. And that was just a really cool moment, especially at that time, being nothing but a fan, never had anything like that. And they kind of showed us a few things. They said, okay, we're going to make you bump one time, and you'll know after that first bump if you really want to dedicate some time and do this or not. And so we took that first bump, and I got up, and it wasn't too bad. They were like, okay, well let me show you how to run the ropes. And I don't know if it was muscle memory, I don't know what it was from just watching so much wrestling growing up. And I was there for the Hulk Hogan era. I watched all the way through the Monday Night Wars, and of course I watch wrestling now. So I was there for all of that. And I don't know what possessed me to run those ropes correctly, but I didn't run them half bad. And they were like, you know what, man, you need to come back. you seriously need to come back. You might have a gift for this. And the rest is history, man. So it really wasn't just one person. Really, I was trained by several members of that roster at the time. But if I wanted to name some names, Shawn Mills is probably who I credit as the trainer. He was the one that I worked with the most. And, he wasn't, I don't believe he ever was a well-known or anything like that. Kind of was a journeyman, traveled around a lot, attended a lot of seminars. That's where he picked up most of his knowledge. But he was my first trainer, so to speak.
Now, I'm always curious when you're, because a lot of people have a very similar beginning with the trampoline in the backyard. But did you guys take the time? Were you watching matches and breaking them down and trying to figure out the moves, or were you just kind of like, how did that work out when you were? Not that I want to concentrate on that part. But.
Well, yeah, the funny thing is that you mentioned that is that, yes, we were those kinds of guys. So we would always get together and watch wrestling shows and Raw, and that was back then when Ring of Honor was on HD Net, I believe. So we would tune into that and watch some Ring of Honor matches and stuff. And of course we just thought we were, when you're out there on the trampoline, you just think that you're the smartest mark, right? You're the smartest of the smart marks. So you think you know everything. And we would try to break down the matches and say, okay, why don't we have this guy, and then this guy's going to put heat on you, but then we want you to make a strong comeback. We really tried to direct it as much as we could. We had commentators who would commentate and try to get the guys over during the matches. And we actually did it. We had storylines for everybody and every persona, and we had a guideline for how things were going to go, and we tried to have match feuds and everything like that. So for the backyard, I will say it was pretty organized to be a backyard wrestling fan.
That's awesome. And then you get to the when you're training and everything kind of changes. Did any other of the guys that used to mess around in the backyard pursue training?
Yeah. So my opponent actually that's coming up for this Wrestling Expo, Ryan Justice, he is one of those guys. He was one of those friends. So yeah, that's what's kind of unique about me and him, is that we started at the same time. He was out there on the trampoline with me. So when we went to Amarillo, we were both at that show in Amarillo along with some others. And what's funny about it is after we got a certain amount of training, Ryan was my first match ever in wrestling, my first official wrestling match once I knew a little bit about what I was doing. So yeah, so we've got a very storied history, me and him. And now here we are, we find ourselves at this expo. But yeah, he was the guy that I started with, Ryan Justice.
That's awesome, because we're going to get to him later. And you get the first drop on him, because I got a little interview with Ryan coming up later this week. So you get the first
Great.
the first crack at him, which is going to be good. Now, before you start training and you and Ryan are in the backyard, who is the first, when you first turn on television, when you're a young Jastin Taylor, who first catches your eye, gets you into this crazy world of pro wrestling?
Man, that's a great question. And it's like, I don't know, it's almost like Jastin Taylor. I went in phases, like, of who my favorite wrestler were. I think when you're younger, you tend to gravitate towards the people who were the most colorful and the ones who they kind of were putting over to win a lot and stuff like that. You know, when I was younger, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and Sting and, you know, pretty much your white meat, very colorful baby faces, those were the things. But as I got older, man, I really started to respect the grapplers, man. The guys who would get in there and really just were able to perform great matches. So Mr. Perfect, Bret the Hitman Hart, you know, guys like that. I loved Bret Hart. I was a huge Bret Hart mark when I got older. So he was someone that I just really looked up to. And then later in my fandom, Kurt Angle became the guy. And I just loved everything about Kurt Angle. And that's a guy that I even study a lot to this day. Just his intensity, the way that he approaches a match. I try to bring a lot of those same things to a match myself. Now, granted, I'm not an Olympic gold medalist, so you can't quite bring that wrestling pedigree that Kurt Angle could bring, but that's the kind of wrestler I want to be. Him, Edge, guys like that, that were just like the thinking man's wrestlers. So those are the people I kind of gravitate towards today.
The technical wrestlers. You mentioned Mr. Perfect. I always like to tell this story when I can get it in. When I'm younger, and still to this day, my favorite wrestler is Greg Gagne out of the AWA. That's who I first saw on TV. But I remember how much I hated Kurt Hennig when he turned on Greg Gagne. When I was a kid, wouldn't take the tag and slapped him, and man, did I hate that guy. But now, when you grow up and then you kind of get into this business, you look back and go, man, how, excuse the pun, how perfect was he at setting the hook and reeling me in. And I just appreciate so much looking back on the stuff that kind of hooked us when we were kids. Miz has done it too, I've noticed, because I would get him on in 2007, you turn on and I'm like, freak, I know the business, but I hate that guy. And then you realize, man, he's done it. He's freaking set the hook. And that's cool, man. It's cool when you start to realize that. Now I couldn't imagine Greg Gagne without Kurt Hennig. You could imagine some of those feuds that you watched as a kid without those bad guys, really. And it might just be me, but I think we were all like that when we were kids. As much as we had love for like a Hulk Hogan or somebody, there was somebody else that we're like, man, I hate that guy. And that's such a cool thing.
And that's so true. When you really get in the business, or even if you're not in it, but you just begin to appreciate more of what the art of wrestling is. That might be a better way to say it. But yeah, you're so right. Like, your appreciation for those people like that, like a Kurt Hennig, who was that opposition. And then when you go back and watch those matches and you see the way he would throw himself around and get thrown around by this baby face, or when you go back and you watch people like, I mean, just Hogan had so many like great opponents over the years, but when you see him face somebody like Macho Man, and the way Macho Man would do so many things that would add to that match. And like you talked about Greg Gagne and everything, I mean, even back then there were guys who were like that. You know, those bad guys really made everything so appealing. And then come thinking back to Texas history, you know, back when there was a sportatorium and all of that, I think about the Von Erichs And you know, I mean, I think about them and like how they were just these white meat baby faces, and then just the opposition that would always come in and be against them. And I mean, man, they had some great opponents over the years. And so, I mean, I think about that and I'm like, man, dude, yes, it's so true. Like when you really start looking at the art of wrestling, the villains, man, they really can make or break what a match is. You know, it's true.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Von Erichs, because I was never going to interview a guy from Texas without talking about the Von Erichs, because I've always got to ask. You're right there. You're close. To this day, if I turn on the network, and I started with World Class 1982, and it is because I didn't watch it growing up, it is still fresh to me. It's still there's great storytelling. And I'm old. You're not old, I'm saying, but you're a veteran. You can appreciate the time when back in that mid-'80s, when a heel was a heel and a good guy was a good guy, the bad guys got booed, and there wasn't all this, you know, the way it is right now. But I appreciate that so much, that was the bad guy and everybody hated him, and that was the good guy. And then, man, dude, I learned early on when you go to do a spot show and you're going to come on as a good, you got to work twice as hard to get the fans to like you, because they just they wanted to hate me so bad, and I'm trying to get over it. It's tough, but I appreciate that era when it was just the bad guy. But Von Erich's Freebirds, man, was that legendary.
Oh man, yeah. And speaking of their opponents, they had a bunch of different opponents, but yeah, the Freebirds, that was it, man. That was just one of the most compelling, just most appealing rivalries. I mean, you just had these young, up and coming, hungry, you know, handsome Von Erich brothers, and then on this side, you know, you had them, man, and I mean, you had the Freebirds, and they're these veterans, but they're cocky and arrogant and don't take anything from anybody. And it was just a perfect blend, man. If there was a way to make a perfect wrestling meal, that was it. Those are the ingredients, man. You got and then the girls are swooning for the Von Erichs on this side. And anytime one of the Freebirds did anything to them, I mean, that crowd just was electric. Like when you go back and watch those matches, you just can't deny the magic that those two teams created. It's something special. It really was.
Right. That was like, it's perfect. The perfect storm.
Yeah.
With World Class. But, you know, and a lot of people go World Class and think about like Von Erich's Freebirds, but like I said, go back on your network, go back on your DVDs, your VCRs, and the early World Class, no matter who it was, they were doing it right. You know, they were doing it right. And a lot of stuff. I think Mark Lawrence is the announcer, and he's got this very proper, and today's fan might go, oh, this sounds boring, but you get into the matches and the action and the storylines, and I love it. Speaking of, just want to touch on this a little bit. Speaking of the Freebirds, also at this expo, Independent Wrestling Expo that we're going to get into, Miranda Gordy, daughter of Terry Gordy, is going to be there, and looking forward to seeing her mix it up with Jordan Grace. And she's got another like a four-person, four-woman match as well. So we're really looking forward to that. So have you ever been in the same show as Miranda Gordy?
Not yet. So this will be my first one with her on the card. But I've heard so much. I've seen video clips. So I'm excited to get to see some of them wrestle live and kind of get to see what they bring and the physicality, because I know she's got a reputation for being physical, and so does Jordan Grace. And I've seen some of Jordan Grace's. She's very physical. You know, she definitely knows how to woman handle somebody in the ring, so to speak. So that's gonna be a knockdown drag out. So yeah, I would definitely be watching that one. I'll be keeping a close eye on that.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say Knockdown Dragout is not usually a term described for two women wrestling, but these guys are athletic. They're beasts. I am glad that we are beyond the women as eye candy, and we've got the women as ass kickers, which is so cool.
Yes.
So
And
cool.
it's
about time. And like I said, that's a match that potentially steals the night right there, you know? That's awesome. But let's talk about the Indie Wrestling Expo. It's a 2-day, it's practically 5 days of stuff stuffed into 2 days. We've got 3 different sets of cards coming up. You got your Friday night, you got your halftime Saturday afternoon, and you've got your Saturday night card set up. And in between there, it is a virtual wrestling con, a meet and greet, your expo. You got all kinds of stuff going on. So exciting for the wrestling fan that can be there, and for the wrestling fan who can get it live streamed, which will be announced later on. You'll probably already know by the time this airs. But what are you got 2 very big matches coming up. But before we get into them, what have you been, because everything's different all over these United States, is this going to be your first time in the ring for a while, or have you been able to get a few matches in during this pandemic?
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be a concern, because the last time I wrestled was just before the COVID pandemic really hit, and everything just really kind of got shut down. So I haven't been, and all of the home promotions or promotions that I'm a champion of, they have been in the process of trying to come back, but they haven't been able to, whether it be because of ordinances and just different things going on with different states. So no, I haven't had a formal match. And what was really depressing about COVID when it hit was that I was on my way to Tampa, Florida. I was going to do the Mania week, and I had lined up some stuff with some promotions to work, and I was talking to Evolve, and there might have been a chance to do something there. And, you know, I had done some seminars with them, and so they were kind of had me on their radar, and it just was heartbreaking that I didn't get to do any of that. And plus, I mean, Miami Beach, I mean, come on, I was going to do that too. So that's a little upsetting. But, you know, everybody, I'm sure, has had it hard during this thing. This has been an adjustment for the entire world. So I shouldn't be surprised that it's been an adjustment for me. And so really what I've been doing is just training. At least we've got a ring here in my hometown from my home promotion here, Old School Wrestling, which has been a prominent promotion here in the Midland and Odessa area. And we've got a training facility. So I've been able to sneak over there whenever I can and run the ropes, do my rolls, make sure the footwork is tight, because I plan on making an impact at this show. This is probably going to be the biggest show in Texas all year. And since I'm on it, I plan on making an impact. I plan on proving my worth. And so everything has been focused on preparing for this. This is the date that I set in mind, and that's what's been my focus for these past few months.
You're going to be going at 120% because you haven't wrestled for a while, and you're going to have fans there that haven't seen wrestling in a while. And that makes for, I've been lucky enough to go to a few. Here in Wisconsin, we've been able to have events since June. So
okay.
All socially distanced, safe. And then we were very lucky that we're not only the sponsors of the Indie Wrestling Expo, but we were the sponsors of Warrior Wrestling, which happened was August 7th of 2020, just in case you're watching this a couple years on, which had 500 fans at a football stadium, socially distant, done very well. I know Kyle was up there, the promoter for this show, watching what Warrior's done. But man, just being able to perform in front of fans again has to have you very excited. But But what I think you're most excited about has got to be you're going to jump right in on Friday night into a battle royal. And the winner of this battle royal, get this, goes on to night number 2 to have an opportunity at the NWA Championship versus champion Nick Aldis. But it's a 3-way dance. You'll be in there with Nick Aldis and Jeff Cobb. I mean, what an opportunity for Jastin Taylor coming out of the coronavirus. Your first match has the potential to lead you into a shot at the NWA title. Talk to me about that.
Man, that's like you said, that's a huge opportunity to be able to share the ring with Jeff Cobb and Nick Aldis. That's huge, especially for someone like me. You know, I consider, when I look at those guys, I see them as guys who have made it or are making it. You know what I mean? They're prominent wrestlers. They're world renowned. They're holding championships in major promotions and things like that. And that is something that, while I've had my moments, that is something that is the one thing that has seemed to have eluded me in my career, is just taking that next step to really get to that international status. And though I've wrestled out of the country, you know, I've wrestled in Canada a bit, I've been in the ring with a handful of superstars. You know, I've had my fair shares of run-ins with guys from WWE, Haas Benjamin, Matt Hardy, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I've been in the ring with Chavo Guerrero, been in the ring with quite a few superstars. But I don't know, Texas is such a big place. And there are so many promotions, and it's sometimes I feel like it's almost like the comic books, man. It's almost like, you know, in West Texas is its own universe, and then in North Texas is a universe, and then so it's almost like all these things happen, and you could be the greatest wrestler over here in West Texas, and nobody in North Texas or Central Texas will even have heard about you. You know, it really does feel like that sometimes, and that's how I feel. I feel like, in a lot of ways, I'm one of the best Texas wrestlers that people haven't heard about yet. You know, when you look at my resume, when you look at the promotions I've worked for, I feel like I have a resume that matches some of these guys, but I don't have that status. I don't have those high-profile matches yet to really say, look, Jastin can hang with these guys. And winning this battle royal, and if I get in the ring in there with Jeff Cobb and I can hang with that guy, I get in there with Nick Aldis and I can hang with that guy, of course it would be great to win. But hell, win, lose, or draw, if I come out on the other side in one piece, still standing, having held my own, then the world is going to start paying attention to the living proof. And that's what I want to happen.
I mean, the living proof is the fact that if the stars align on that Friday night, you're in the ring for the NWA title. And that's awesome. Yeah. What now? Your scheduled night 2 to take on Ryan Justice. I want to talk about that match, but have you thought about what happens now? You win this battle royal, you've got a shot at that NWA title, but you still got to take care of business with Ryan Justice. You could potentially have one hell of a hard-working weekend on your plate to get to where you want.
Yeah, and you're right about that, because I could potentially walk out of that match, the NWA champion, and then have to immediately turn around and defend that match against a guy who knows me better than anybody, Ryan Justice. So that's kind of one of those trap matches, you know, like there are these matches in wrestling where every now and then a wrestler encounters what they call that trap match, where maybe you came off of a big night the night before, and then it's that Monday after that big show, or it's that next weekend after that big show, and you've got this opponent that you haven't had a chance to fully scout, you haven't had a chance to fully prepare for, because you had to wrestle the night before, you had to prepare for something big, And that's the guy that can get one over on you. That's the guy that can come and give you a flash pin or a roll up, and the next thing you know, your shoulders got pinned to the mat. It's a trap match. And that's kind of a situation that I could be potentially walking into. So trust me, I'm not sleeping on Ryan Justice. And if he hears anything, I want him to know that. I have been preparing for him too, because Ryan, it's almost like facing yourself, man. It's almost like looking in the mirror and facing yourself. We've grown up together in this business. We've traveled the roads together. We've been the greatest of friends, and we've been bitter enemies. And he knows every move probably before I'm going to make it, and vice versa. So trust me, I'm not sleeping on him. But yes, I've got my sights set on winning that battle royal. But no, it would not be wise for me to sleep on a guy the caliber of Ryan Justice. That's for sure.
And, you know, nothing to take away from you or Ryan Justice, but as a fan, to be able to watch a match between two opponents that know each other so well, it sounds like this could be a gem in the making for the Indie Wrestling Expo too. So just you have so much opportunity in front of you, as does everybody in that battle royal. How are you taking, you've had 6 months off, and now you're coming back to your first event, mentally preparing for not just, it would be huge if you were stepping in the ring with Joe Smith after all this time off, but you're going to step into this is like the Super Bowl of independent wrestling. And let's face it, this is the matches that I saw at Warrior were history making, because it was the largest crowd in North America watching pro wrestling since the pandemic started. Now you're stepping into the biggest weekend of professional wrestling since the pandemic started. And we're talking about with fans. This is potentially bigger than SummerSlam that is coming up this weekend. How do you mentally, I mean, are you kind of on autopilot? How do you keep your excitement down and your focus, knowing that you've got this big, what I'm going to say is the Super Bowl of independent wrestling coming up on August 28th and 29th?
Man, you're asking the tough questions.
I know. I got to dig in there.
You want the hard answers. Well, actually, I'm definitely for the task. There's a reason why I call myself the living proof. It's not just because I think it's a cool moniker. It's not just because it's it flies off the tongue. It's something common that people say. It's because I truly believe that I embody that. The living proof is about motivation. It's about motivating others. It's about letting people know that life is simply what you make it. And everything is about how well you react to life's many unpredictable situations. That's what it's all about. And that's what I'm trying to be living proof of. Wrestling has always been a dream of mine, but it's always been a dream of mine also to, once I got into wrestling, to not bring shame to it. Never do anything that's going to shame the business. Do something to enhance it. Do something to better it. Do something to motivate people and say, look, you can have a beginning like I did, but look, you can rise to the occasion and you can be better than where you started. And that's really what's at stake for me. It's not even so much getting my name out there. Yes, that's important. Even the titles, the opportunities to step in there with big superstars, that's all great. But at the end of the day, I got to feel like what I'm doing, what I stand for, what I embody, and what I represent is bigger than wrestling. And that deserves to have a stage. And I can bring that message. I can bring that motivation to a bigger stage of professional wrestling. And that's what motivates me every day. That's why when I get up, I got to hit the gym. I got to keep my stamina up. I got to get some ring time whenever I can here in my hometown, because there are too many people looking at me wondering, am I the living proof? Am I going to live up to that moniker? and I intend on living up to it. And up until this time, I do well in pressure situations. That's another thing. It's not all just talk with me. My track record is I've done well under pressure. When I had Future of Honor matches with Ring of Honor, I showed up. I made an impact. I did well. Ring of Honor brought me back several times. Whether it's doing some assignment for WWE, whether it's wrestling for an Evolve show or some other great independent promotions like AAW or Glory Pro. When I show up, I make an impact and I stay on people's minds. And that's what I'm bringing to this expo. I'm not just another guy that they signed up. There's a reason why they signed me up. And I intend on making an impact. And I know that. I believe that right here in my heart, and I will. I will be living proof that you can make this thing happen for you in one night. One night can change everything, and it will. I have to believe that.
Ooh. Brother, you just talked me into the building. I love it. That is, guys, if you are anywhere near Dallas for the Indy Wrestling Expo, you got to be there. If you can't make it to Dallas, you got to order this live stream. You got to go to the Indie Wrestling Expo on Twitter and find out how you can be a hold of this. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the entire event. The entire weekend is matchup after matchup that I'm looking forward to. And like I said, now speaking to you and then going to be speaking to Ryan Justice. I mean, two guys that I might not be familiar with, but now I'm 100% hand on my heart excited to check out this match. We're gonna move on just a little bit from the expo. I want to be very conscientious, can't even say that word, but respectful of the time that we have here. Wrestling Travel, as you know, this is my segue into our commercial here, Jastin, is we're out of the United Kingdom, but we bring fans to their favorite live wrestling events, and we're starting to get ready for WrestleMania 37 and all the Wrestle Kingdom, everything, because we do believe events like this are leading us back to where the fans can be at wrestling. My question is, this crazy world of pro wrestling, now you've talked about your resume being, where are some of the coolest places? It can be a town next door, but what are some of the cool cities that this crazy world of pro wrestling has brought you into? This is our travel question. Like, where have you traveled, and what cities stick out that are like, man, that was a fun town?
Man, well, when I went up to Philly, there was a Ring of Honor seminar camp, and then I also went up there a few times back when Shakara was big. Did some training up there for Shakara as well. And man, I just had the greatest time performing in front of some of those fans. It was a completely different atmosphere from something over in Texas, what they demand from their performers, and the way you have to adapt, the way that you have to adapt your style to maximize excitement from the crowd. And it was definitely a challenge. It definitely had a filling out process, but I had a great time and just enjoying some of the things that I had never had before, like a Philly cheesesteak. Got to have one of those. Got to go to New York because since it was just up the way, so I got to go there, and I got to see Madison Square Garden. I got to walk around, see some of the sites there and stuff like that, and just interacting with so many different people. It was just so different from down here in Texas and everything, down south here in Texas. So that was definitely a great experience. Another one that stands out was my first time that I went to Canada for CWE Wrestling. Had a great match up there, and man, Canada, like, such dedicated fans that love wrestling. I was even surprised that when I got there were fans that already knew about me, because little things that I don't always talk about because it's wrestling. I try to keep it wrestling, but I'm a podcaster. I also podcast and review movies and do that kind of stuff. I've got a podcast and I'm a co-host on there, and I'm also involved in some film writing and stuff like that. So when I'm not doing when I'm not throwing people around in the wrestling ring, I'm actually got a computer and I'm writing different types of stories. But when I went to Canada, there were people that knew about that. There was a guy that said, hey, man, I enjoy your movie podcasts and stuff. And it was just so humbling that they knew me beyond wrestling. They knew me for something else, you know, so that was interesting. And then just associating with those fans, being a part of that atmosphere there in Canada, because, you know, Canada is where a lot of my heroes come from, you know, Bret Hart and, of course, trained in the dungeon, Owen Hart, Davey Boy Smith, you know, the whole Hart family, that all of that, you know, Canada has their association in Canada. So that was a place I always wanted to work. And when I got there, it was great. I got to have a, oh my gosh, what do they call the panini? I got to have one of those for the first time with the fries and the gravy.
Poutine.
Poutine. Yes, poutine. Sorry, I can't believe
Oh, you're good.
But yeah, but I loved it. It was great. It tasted very good. So I actually missed them, a poutine. I miss them now. But yeah, that was a great experience too. Definitely one of my standout experiences traveling.
It's very difficult to travel in Canada because I believe anywhere you are in Canada, you're no more than 5 minutes away from a Tim Hortons. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So CWE, was that is that run by our friend Hotshot Danny Duggan?
Yes, Hotshot Danny Duggan. And he was a great guy, man. Very not only respectable, but hospitable, man. I mean, welcomed us with open arms. I didn't have any difficulties while I was there. There were a couple of other guys on the show that I know too, like, of course, Michael Elgin. You might have heard of him. But you know, he was on the show at the time. And there were other big superstars and stuff like that that were on that show that night. And I mean, it was just, you know, it was just a great show. You know what I mean? And Danny Duggan, I mean, he was just great. Just a great host. Anything we needed. What do you need? Do you need anything? Critiqued matches afterwards. I mean, he was a stand-up guy. So a guy that I wouldn't hesitate to come back and work for again.
Fantastic. So if this weekend at the Indy Wrestling Expo works out for you and you are crowned the NWA champion, hopefully you keep us in mind, keep us little people the way. But I'm actually going to give you right now the tools to win. We're talking about Canada, and it pops in my head. Good friend and Lockdown Session alumni Tyson Dukes has just started his own YouTube channel. And if you go there after we do this interview, you can see he's done some instructional videos. There's little tiny tricks I think that you might be able to pick up on your way and help you become the NWA champion for all. And I know you're excited to get in the ring, and you've got to focus on the Battle Royal. You got to focus on Ryan Justice. And you come off as a guy that's step one, step two. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and start thinking about Nick Aldis and Jeff Cobb, because I got to take care of business as a living proof before I can even start thinking that. But maybe our friend Tyson's got some little tidbits that you can throw in your toolbox there.
Well, hey, man, I am a person, I soak up knowledge like a sponge. So I would definitely be checking out Tyson Dukes after this. I will. I'm always willing to learn. So that I would definitely check out Tyson Dukes. I'm pretty sure he's got some handy stuff that I could use, especially in that Battle Royal. It's going to be a lot of guys in that. So
now, you've been in Canada, so I know you have a passport. Since we're out of the United Kingdom, have you ever had a chance to go overseas and wrestle, perhaps in the United Kingdom?
No, but that is on the goal sheet, man. That is a goal of mine, is to wrestle in the UK. So hopefully some things will materialize with that. I sent a couple of resumes to a couple of different promotions over there, but of course with COVID and everything, just kind of, you know, any movement I thought that I was making over in that area pretty much came to a halt. So I'm kind of in a position of having to start all over. But yes, that is a goal and a dream of mine. I'll even go ahead and say it on here. Mark my words. I don't know when, but I will wrestle in the UK. I will do that. I want to do that, and I will do that. And I know I have the skill. I know I can impress people over there, and you'll get to see some of it at this expo. And I promise you, man, I'll be in the UK. I'll get there. I will.
That's awesome. And the good thing I love about working with Wrestling Travel is we proudly support pro wrestling, whether you're watching it on the TV with a 70,000 arena or you're watching it. We support from the beginning to the top. We support independent wrestling. So anything we can do to help facilitate people getting over to UK, you got a friend in us. So my final question for you, the living proof Jastin Taylor, is my most important question that I ask because this is why I started the lockdown session. How can the wrestling fans follow Jastin Taylor? What are your social medias? Plug your movie podcast, plug everything you got, but don't forget also, we love t-shirts. Wear your t-shirts, your gear. So give us the Jastin Taylor rundown, how us fans can follow everything.
Perfect. My favorite question. So where can you find the living proof Jastin Taylor? Well, obviously, you can go to Jastin.Taylor and find me on Facebook. So that's one way that you can find me. On Instagram, I'm Taylor Jastin, so it's just the name reverse, and you'll see me on there. You'll see the official living proof Jastin Taylor symbol, so you can't miss it. And there aren't too many Jastin Taylors online, so I'm pretty easy to find. If you Google me, I'll pop up there too, and all my social medias will pop up. On Twitter, I'm Jastin Taylor. All together, all one word. So you can find me on Twitter also. So give me a follow. Please shoot me something, direct message. Let me know if you enjoyed this interview, if you've enjoyed any of my matches. I've got plenty of them on YouTube that you can watch. Let me know. Watch some Jastin Taylor stuff, man. Watch some Jastin Taylor tape, as we used to say. Watch some tape and let me know what you think about me. Of course, my shirts, and I'm wearing one right now, the official living proof flag shirt, because I carry a flag when I come out to the ring. You can find those on Pro Wrestling Tees. So yeah, go to Pro Wrestling Tees, go to the search bar, put in Jastin Taylor, I pop right up. I've got all kinds of color options for you on there. And last but not least, as we talked about, I'm a podcaster. You can go to Cinema Slayers Podcast on Facebook or cinema_slayers, and you can find my podcast for everything movies and television.
Awesome. And remember, when you do go to somebody's podcast and you want to support them, please leave them a rating. It helps. It doesn't take anything but a click of your hand. Just like this on YouTube, I'm looking for people to subscribe. YouTube's a little bit different. You got to watch like 30 seconds of video and subscribe. And why would you not watch the whole interview if you're tuned in? So please support the independent professional wrestling and support Wrestling Travel. The people that support independent wrestling, we make one big happy family. Living proof Jastin Taylor, I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. We wish you the best of luck. August 28th and August 29th down at the Independent Wrestling Expo.
Well, thank you, sir. And I really appreciate this opportunity. You guys have been so instrumental in helping promote this show and helping promote the wrestlers. So it means the world to us, especially us that have been off and kind of haven't been in the public eye of wrestling because of COVID and everything. This is especially helpful. And now I'm even more hyped. I'm even more motivated to be ready for this event. So thank you very much, sir. I appreciate all of you guys there at WT.
Thank you, sir. It's our honor.